Hello everybody and welcome wherever you might be. This is NBL Overtime, New Year, same show, wherever you might be, same thing you do. To join the conversation, hashtag NBL Overtime, all the NBL socials, and it has been a huge couple of weeks since we last spoke. Before we get into it, big shout out to our man Copes. He's back in the US and we're thinking of you and your family, and we've got a little bit of a different crew to ring in the new year. Damon Lowery, the superstar in the house. How you doing, buddy?
It's Cam, sensational, man.
Happy New Year to you.
Welcome to the Kobe year.
Oh, hello. I like that. You ready to fire up?
I'm ready.
Good. Pete Hooley. Hello, man.
Good to be back.
You good?
Normally I'm coming back to fill in for someone, which I am, the great Liam Santoria, enjoying time with his family as he should be, but I'm normally not alongside another substitution. So this is a bit unique for you.
It excites me. It excites me.
Fresh.
I like it. And let's get straight into it because I know we've all got pretty big feelings and thoughts around the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. We're going to start right there because I'm going to ask you straight up, gentlemen. I do not know. Are they a bad good team or a good bad team? Oh. Pete Hooley, legitimately, before we get into Gary Brown and everything else, where right now do you sit on the Phoenix?
Yeah, it is tough because, again, the same question that I've had for the last few years is, do I have trust in them to be a consistently good defensive team, which you have to be in the NBL, to succeed? And I haven't seen enough to say that I do. The superstars that they have, I think, can carry them to where they need to go in that trajectory. I just don't think they have enough on the defensive end to get over the line, and we haven't seen that anywhere this season, especially the last few games.
Did he answer your question?
No, he did not. He did not. Damon,
me.
please.
Allow me.
Go.
They're a good, bad team.
Yeah, okay.
They are a good, bad team. They got all the pieces to be good. Even without Will Cummings, with Nader, they got all the pieces to be good, but they don't play consistently enough. They're not good enough. They can't keep the scoreboard ticking over enough. Too many ins and outs. It always seems like it's something. It's just always something. I can't get a level consistency of anything other than inconsistency out of those guys. So for that reason, they are a good, bad team.
They bought in an import who replaced Will Cummings and actually has looked okay. Like, he hasn't taken a great deal to acclimatise to the league, which is fair enough if he did. So we sit here, their imports playing some good basketball. Gary Brown, which we'll get to in a moment. Big Sauce has had his moments. I know he hurt that knee a little bit in Brisbane, but I just can't get a read on where Southeast Melbourne Phoenix is. We'll start with Gary Brown Jr. though, because it was disappointing, and not just from a fact that they lost the game. The action that Gary Brown Jr., when he punched Aaron Baines, is disappointing in any league, anywhere around the world. There's the vision there. Took exception to the screen from Aaron and gave him one. Straight away got ejected. I'd say this, David. What is your first thought when you see that? When you see that, and we've seen it on, I think it was Friday night, what was your first thought?
I would love to punch people and get away. Now, we've all been picked before, but to haul off like that, it wasn't the first time. It's the second time. So look, and he was having a good game. Like he was bringing them back, and this kind of derailed the rest of the game. So it's disappointing because I'm a huge fan. He's in my little big man society, Gary Brown. I'm not going to talk Spanish. I could if I wanted to, but he's not Felix Trinidad. He's not some of those famous Puerto Rican fighters. He's a basketball player and a good point guard. I hate that he just lost the plot like that.
There's the first incident we were referring to, right? The one on Torrey Smith-Milner. And this is where, I have a bit of an issue with it. We saw Mike Kelly's post-game press conference when he said that it's out of character. He doesn't see that, but also it's a selfish action because it does hurt your team. 6 minutes and 44 seconds left in the game when that occurred. And you looked at, the way that it came about, the suspension or lack thereof, and down to a fine. I think that's where a lot of people sit as, I think we all sit here saying that he should have missed a game.
Agreed.
Because of it, but the way that it's all set up and you look at the penalties that apply to an action like this, here's the table. So have a look at it here and what it was. So it was intentional, yes, medium impact and low contact. So there is another part of this penalty table that's for careless. It wasn't that, it was intentional. So that is, in fact, with the body contact, 1 game down to a fine. Based on this, the outcome was correct. And again, a lot of people aren't happy with that, but based on the framework, it is 100% correct, which I also think that you can't change the framework mid-season. You can't do a wrinkle because there's a secondary offence. You can't add anything because then it opens a can of worms.
I agree on everything, right? And then we say the same thing about certain rules in the NBL when it's adjudicated. The actual adjudication and end result for Gary Brown Jr. was correct to the actual current day rules. Now, they need to tweak them. The NBL need to change that. We can't be in a situation where someone can just punch someone and be able to play, even if it's the first or second time. That's quite a hostile act, and it might be out of character. I don't know. Gary Brown Jr., I thought that Mike Kelly spoke really well post-game. The issue with this is that is just something we don't want to see in NBL or any basketball league around the world. And I've got to relate this back to Mason Peatling, who a couple of years ago, he got 2 matches, I think, suspended down to 1 for the bump on Mitch Creek in that throwdown and the emotions. Now, that then was a little bit different because they assessed it high. Fair enough. If you want to give Mason Peatling time, fair enough. But Gary Brown you just can't punch someone and be allowed to play in the next game. I just think it's a really bad look. And the fact is, I think it was Denzel Valentine on the win the Kings against Taipans. He went in, he felt he was fouled, gave a little N1, gave a little shimmy, got done for a tech foul for taunting. And the NBL continually tell us that taunting, tech fouls, we jump in to stop it so there's no fights and there's no punches thrown and all the rest of it because we don't want to see that because it sets a bad example, which I agree with. And then someone punches someone else and they pay a very small fine, Damon, compared to the amount of money he would probably be on and he's right to go next game. You just can't have it both ways.
The piece of paper that rule is written on,
it's worth that, is it?
Nothing. It's a farce. Whoever sat down there and put that together, nobody thought to say, hang on a minute, but what if he does it for the second time? They never thought to say that. So I'm going, get back in the room. Come out when you guys are really ready to make some proper rules. Because I'm telling you, if I could have got away with $1,550 fine, I couldn't on my salary. I'd have punched Andrew Vlahoff's lights out.
But it might have been the last thing you did, though.
And then I would have been out of the
I agree with all this, and again, so I have an amendment to throw out there, Cam.
Throw us.
I know overtime
This is what this league does.
It is a flaw, right? It is a flaw of that framework that you can do it a second time. So that framework, when it has an intentional box and it has a careless box. If you are deemed to do anything that goes to the tribunal, goes to this kind of penalty box that is intentional, you automatically for the rest of the season carry a suspended sentence. If you're suspended or not. So you're basically on probation. If you are deemed to have done something intentionally, so that they've said that this is your decision, you now carry that with you for the rest of the season so that if anything happens, whether it's careless or intentional again, you are guaranteed to at least miss a game. That's where I think that you can do it to the amendment in the off season is, okay, you've made a decision here. You've intentionally done something that we have to look at. It might be a fine that first time for Gary Brown. It's a fine, whatever it is. But now you're on watch for the rest of the season. You're suspended sentence. You slip up again, you're going to miss a game. Now,
I doubt that these couple of minutes us saying that Gary Brown shouldn't play is going to actually help them like shows like ours, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. They aren't overly huge right now in the media. Mitch Creek had this to say. Now, it was a huge win. Christmas Day, we've got to give their props. It was a huge win, of course. They went to Tassie. This is what he rolled around. Keeping in mind that Mitch Creek is a huge part of the NBL broadcast team and part of the media commentary that does a wonderful job, and he does. I have no dramas with players speaking their mind. In fact, I encourage you to want to see it more. Now, don't get confused. I'm not saying I agree with everything that is said, in particular here. But the thing with this, Damon, and you said it really well this morning on the NBL Now podcast, if you are going to say stuff and you're going to have a crack at us for having an opinion based on your up-down record, you got to be able to walk the walk.
Don't talk about it. Be about it. Anybody can say something after the fact, and then you can't string them together. You wasn't even in the game on Christmas Day, but you're sticking up for your teammates. Okay, I get it. You got to fly the flag, but I'm saying you're going to fly it 1 week and then duck the next week. That's all I'm asking for is consistency. I actually had the Phoenix in the 6. Like preseason poll, I had them in the 6. I said, those guys know who they are as a team. I like the direction Mike Kelly did, the whole defensive-minded thing. I like the imports. I even like Will Cummings. I like Nader, too. But what happened is now is the inconsistency, some injuries have derailed them. But now I'm starting to look at a collective attitude, Luke. Cam.
Thank you.
Cool, you surname.
Luke, Cam, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Sorry.
I got you, man. No stress.
It's a collective thing now. I'm going like this. What's bothering you guys? So all them L's ain't bothering you? Are they bothering you as much as a couple of commentators saying a couple of things? You know what I mean? I think the priorities might be a little confused.
I mean, I looked at this, and again, I copped a spray from Alan Williams. Christmas Day, I was down there sideline after the game, and Felix and I were both there courtside, and we copped a little spray saying we didn't believe in him. And I've been on record now saying that outside of that Phoenix locker room, I don't think anybody believed in them because of the 3 games prior to that win in Tasmania, which was one of the gutsiest wins of the season. You go in Tasmania, hostile territory, Christmas Day, sellout crowd, and get that win under man was huge. They lost by 75 points in the previous 3 games, and they didn't really show anything of what they could achieve. So how does anybody actually believe? And it's not like anybody's coming at characters. No. It's not like anybody's doing any of that. As commentators, our job is to call what we see. We see a team losing by 75 in 3 consecutive games, not showing fight. The body language looks poor at times. Defensively, traffic cones at times. You got to call it what it is. And then on the flip side, we'll give you your roses when you have a game against the Phoenix.
Well, you know what?
Massive win.
They got their roses, and then they got belted by Brisbane in the next game, which is disappointing for everyone. Let's get to New Zealand, because this is bad news for the Phoenix, because the Breakers are finding their groove. I know you've been big on them, Liam Santamaria, Copes, everyone has suggested, when this team gets fit and firing, watch out. And it's a team that we start to throw around in the back end of any season. You don't want to see them in the playoffs. Well, legitimately, you do not want to see this team in the playoffs. They are playing really good basketball, and it quite simply comes down occasionally to personnel. They're getting their players back. Cheatham is back. McDowell White is back. They're feeling comfortable, Damon. This is a much different New Zealand team than a couple of weeks or even a month ago.
In the words of Curtis Blow, these are the breaks. This is driven by leadership. Leadership. Modi Maor, the amount of adversity that this dude has dealt with in the 2 seasons he's been coaching, and even as an assistant coach, it's phenomenal how he handles it. We see other teams go to water. Other players might start going to water a little bit. Modi holds these dudes accountable, a la Scott Roth. He's in a similar vein. He will not let good players lower their standard. He won't let it happen. You saw what he did with Anthony Lamb. He was like, sit down, went at him. And Anthony Lamb sat out there, took it like a man, came back out there, and went immediately to work. I'm sure we'll probably talk about him later. But this is the Modi effect. He coaches a la like Popovich. He coaches his superstars hard, just like, and everybody else goes, we got to fall in line. So I'm good. It's good to see them getting the results. And like you say, Cam, now they're getting healthy, and they still not 100%. Finn Delaney still got to come back to this team. They are rolling. I like them in the top 4.
We haven't seen Zylan Cheatham get anywhere near back to his best as well. So they're a scary team. And we don't do power rankings anymore. But if we had to do power rankings right now, I have them 3rd.
Oh, okay.
I think the way that they're playing right now, they're the 3rd best team in the league at this full strength, because we've seen, I mean, Sydney had a big win finally, but Tasmania is faltering. I think it's Melbourne, Perth, and then I think it's New Zealand.
It was a big win last night, because 4th quarter is against a team, as we have a look at their run home, because we talk a little bit about teams getting momentum and gaining momentum. Here it is, all right? So, good one. Perth, of course, playing wonderful. There you go. Melbourne. So we've got home games, and then they've got to hit the road if you're Sydney. But you'd feel comfortable in some of these back ends as well when you're trying to gain the momentum. They're a team that stacked. They are stacked. We spoke a lot about the roster getting put together in the off-season, coming off that oh-so-close title last year. They're a team you don't want to play. And
they play the bottom 2 teams at the end, right? That's it. The rest of it, there's a lot of tests in that, which, again, I think they want. Because the fact that Modi Maor, you mentioned, could have them steady the ship a little bit with all these injuries, to be ready and just give them that trust and say, hey, once everybody comes back, we've got the pieces now. Their top-end talent is one of the best in the league. In the roster, the next star, we got to give him some hype.
Don't go early. He might pop up in yes or no later on.
He's unbelievably consistent. That's what they look for. Munster's Stavicius. And he is looking unbelievable, every bit of an NBA player, and this is what they needed, this consistent, I guess, other player to put the ball in the basket outside of PJC and Anthony Lamb, and these tests are going to help them. It's a tough schedule, but I think they're going to do some damage.
So I know about this, you know, when you get your personnel back, and McDowell White and Cheatham are like two of their top 5 players, and you needed those guys to come back, but they needed some type of spark. They needed the energy. They need some of the contagious love and fun that comes with a young man doing stuff like that. I'm not saying he's turned their season around, but he's been a huge propeller for what has happened in the last 3 weeks, which has given them their love for the game and the way they play their best basketball back. He's been great.
You know what's funny? Modi Maor, in the quote about when they signed him, said, I want him out of all the next stars because he's the one next star who can contribute to winning more than the rest. And up until a few rounds ago, we're all thinking, saying, that doesn't work. Well, what do you see here? Now we're seeing it.
Absolutely.
Best thing that happened to the Breakers, Justinian Jessup. Unfortunate for him, personally, but for the team, in comes Lamb. Now, Montes, he's Justinian Jessup. That's that role. Knockdown shooter, get on the rim, good size. It all fell into place perfectly.
Now, who do you think's more likely to make a real run at this? New Zealand or Illawarra?
Oh, you can't ask that man this.
Both.
Talk to me about your team. Talk to me.
Both. as the honorary self-imposed spokesman of the Illawarra Hawks, they are marching. I am reinstituting my pick that they are going to make the playoffs. They're going to catch everybody. They got the most collective buy-in. I said that this morning on the podcast. They got the most collective buy-in as a group. They playing the right way. Gary Clark and Sam Frawling, they playing inside outside. Justin Tatum was an all-defensive guy when he played basketball back in the day. He's preaching defense. He's got guys now. His rotations have tightened up a little, just a little bit.
Barely.
Just a little bit. But the defensive end, they are actually, they believe in it. It's like it's important to them now. So the way they're rolling right now, Cam, they got too much momentum. I see them leapfrogging the Phoenix, and I'm saying Kansas in there somewhere too.
They are.
I need to
Absolutely
reassess, but.
So you're right about the defensive way of which they're playing their basketball, but you touched on, before and playing the right way. They offensively, they feel a lot freer, and defensively, been able to tighten up enough. And you don't win championships without playing defense. So he's been able to do it at both ends. Are you signing him right now? Are you signing him?
Absolutely.
Signing him right now?
Yep.
Not even worrying about Brian Goorjian?
His price is going to go up.
Yeah.
Again, he's going to be cheaper than Brian Goorjian.
Yeah.
When you talk about bringing the GOAT back, that doesn't come cheap. And I know what Brian Goorjian's done. I know exactly right, but it's been such a long time. Even when Gorge coached, both teams were very successful lately, those 2 years, and where he got them and what they got them to achieve.
Back-to-back
a couple of injuries here and there away from maybe doing some more damage. But even then, I keep using the word vibe, but that's what it is, right? Everyone's having fun. Everyone on the roster is ready to play. Defensively, you mentioned they're giving up 81 points per game under Justin Tatum, which is phenomenal. And again, defense, I'm going to keep saying it till I'm blue in the face. If you're not a top 3, maybe 4 defensive team in the NBL, you will not win a title.
He has single-handedly got Tyler Harvey another job in this league as well, because, and I don't mean that in disrespect to Tyler Harvey, but we hadn't seen the All-NBL Tyler Harvey in the last couple of years that we seen when he came here. And all of a sudden, well, tell me, you watch it closer than me.
You mentioned Gary Clark and Sam Frawling, Damon. I think that once he's taken over, he said, hey, we've got these 2 elite bigs. They're going to be our first 1 and 2. They're going to be our A1, A2. And when Tyler Harvey, we need to get him going, take a bit of pressure off him, and he's relishing that. He's no longer getting all the attention. You got to worry about the big fellas inside. And Tyler Harvey, who you said, get a new contract next year.
Yeah.
He could very well, I think January next year, become an Australian citizen. That contract's going to be a little nicer.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. What do you got for me?
When the Navy SEALs do this, that means the hold. Everybody calm down.
What about?
Justin Tatum. Yes, he is the front runner.
Yeah.
Can we wait till the end of the season?
I agree.
As soon as the season, if they make the playoffs, at minimum 2-year deal is on the table, at minimum. But you want to do it right now. That changes the whole dynamic. They're playing right now based on it's all about now. Let's not worry about the future. Everybody gets all happy and let's sign the guy. Let's have a parade. Hold. At the end of the season, though, at my signal, unleash holy hell to sign this dude.
If he goes on this and they get to the 6th spot, his price is going to go up.
So who cares?
And on another thing of that, he's going to get some phone calls around, but imagine what he can do with a team that he constructs himself.
Yeah, I know, but he can construct that anyway. I'm with you, Damon. I've been on this, and I wasn't 100% sold on the move they made a month ago, but I'm all in now because they have been so fun to watch. If I'm Justin Tatum, I'm not signing that deal. You talk about the price going up. Now, I'm not saying he's chasing the cash and it's all about that, which certainly seems like it isn't. But why would he sign it now? All of a sudden, they were like, hey, we can get him cheaper. And even if they make the top 4 and win a play-in game, he's still not going to be more expensive than Brian Goorjian. But they're doing it the right way. I would wait, but well and truly, he is in position 1A to be the head coach of this team.
I don't actually know how
the
Coach of the Year candidates work for an interim coach.
Look,
I mean, Dean Bickham is obviously leading in charge. I just thought about it. Can you get interim coach? I'm not sure.
Hey, Tassie, any concerns?
Yeah, major.
All right, why?
Well, I mean, Scott Roth said it best, didn't he? I mean, he's been saying it for a little bit now. We've seen it at their best, but have a look at this. Their post-loss to New Zealand, and we're digging ourselves a hole that we might not ever be able to get out of, to be quite honest with you. Ever is a massive word.
Yeah.
We could flip this around if we have enough grit and toughness to do it, or we could slip into the abyss at the rate we go. Now, I spoke to Scott Roth a few weeks ago before Will Magnay came back.
Just want to say, and Scott Roth is no different. Coaches are so historically negative. Right, now I understand that they're not playing the basketball that he wants them, but that sounded like a real dramatic quote.
No, that sounds like a quote from a man who has been on this wave of this train of thought for the whole season. Because when I said a few weeks ago before Magnay came back, I spoke to him. He said, look, we have something really special here. If we lock in anywhere near being elite defensively than we were the first 2 years, we can win a title and do something special. If we don't, his words were, we can finish ninth.
Yeah.
And we're not seeing that defensive buy-in that we saw in the first 2 years, and it's costing them.
It cost them last night. That was the first moment. I'm not concerned about them. I still think they're in the top 4 teams in the league. But it did last night, that defensive grit that came to the fore at different times and in major moments in the first 2 years of their existence. They had an opportunity last night to show it against New Zealand late in the game when it was on their hand, on their home court, trying to bounce back from a Christmas Day disappointment, and they didn't bring it. And that's a slight concern. I'll give them that.
They barely lost.
That's also true.
That game was hot. That game was a Final Four playoff game.
Yeah.
Scott Roth is being a little dramatic because he wants to drive home the point to his team. This would have happened if we don't defend. You can go out there and beat Brisbane, and you can defend whoever. You can keep teams at 70, 80. This is the New Zealand Breakers. You ain't just going to hold them dudes to 75, 80 points. So let's just calm down. There's a little concerns only from a depth point of view. They need Magnay.
They do.
And they need Majuk Ding.
I'm
Because without them two, Marcus Lee, who knows what's going to happen with Marcus Lee? He was great the other day. But can he do that every single night? Because you saw what happened. He had to go to a whole lot more Fabian Krislovich. Marcus was huge. He fouled out. Probably should have fouled out a couple minutes earlier. But 14, 13 rebounds. He was big down low. Then we saw some Jared Bairstow. Now that's when you know they're compromised from a depth point of view.
Yeah, without Will Magnay, they look completely different.
They do.
They actually looked back to an elite defensive team when he was there playing 20 minutes a game and what he was doing. So take him out of this game. You don't want to go as far as saying if he's in this game, they win, but the way he's been playing, I think they do. But you keep saying they barely lost. They've been barely losing some close games all season long, which they didn't do last year. We knew last year that, hey, when it got tough, that's when Tassie were going to stand up. I'm not completely concerned. I still think, top 4 for sure, and I still think that when Will Magnay comes back under Scott Roth, they'll figure it out.
See, that's the thing. That's a really good point. And this is when I say to Scott Roth was a little dramatic, and you touched on it as well. I understand because they are negative. Coaches are negative. It's all about defense, as well it should be. And the way they built themselves is on defense. But it's all about Will Magnay for me, because if he comes in, they're better defensively, and they are a lot more comfortable in what they're doing. Now, it is a big if. Because unfortunately, Will Magnay has had his injury concerns ever since he got there and even prior to becoming a jack jumper. So then to get him on floor, we all want to see him back out there for our own selfish basketball fan reasons. But if they can get him going, I still think that they can contend. I still don't have them as good as Perth or Melbourne, and probably not Sydney, but they've put themselves in a situation they can right that ship, and Magnay's fine. They'll finish top 4.
Yeah, Magnay's the one, right? That's the one.
That's
the ticket to their success. But that concern, even with Will Magnay, for me, still lies in their wing. You talk about wing depth, wing defense, right? Because Milton Doyle, we know what Milton Doyle does. It's going to be like an Anthony Drimmick type, someone coming in, Sean McDonald. Because when they play those teams that you mentioned, who's going to be their Bryce Cotton stopper? They don't. Matt Kenyon's not there. Sam McDaniel's not there. Not that anyone can stop Bryce right now. Who's going to be the guy who goes to Chris Golding? Who's going to be the guy that goes to Jalen Adams? All these questions, I'm not sure that they have answers for right now, unless they do it collectively, which is what they did the first 2 years. They haven't shown it on a consistent basis, and they'll figure it out.
We should give a shout out to Sean McDonald, who was a former teammate of yours, right? NBL 1?
Yeah, not surprised with any of this. Played with him at Killside, not surprised.
Unbelievable, I know.
Waiting for his opportunity, he's getting it. And again, this is the brilliance of Scott Roth. He said, hey, I want to keep you.
Agreed.
And he signed that contract.
Love it. Hashtag NBL Overtime to get involved. The Cairns Taipans. We're coming for you next. It was a gorgeous night in Melbourne, and any time the roof is open, it traditionally means that something historic is going to happen. And when you've got 2 great teams on the court, Melbourne and Perth, the fireworks are always going to be ever present. It was a wonderful night, a Saturday night in Melbourne, festive time, sporting capital of the world. And somehow, what happened off court was actually transcended by what happened on court. A wonderful game, went to overtime. 2 heavyweights of this competition going back and forth. Chris Golding for 3, Usher down the other end, and they had their opportunities. He let the fans know, and then we got to overtime, and Ian Clark, an NBA and an NBL champion, said the bank is open, and Melbourne United were able to get the win over the Perth Wildcats. A little more on the Wildcats in a couple of minutes, but the Melbourne United team, they went from there to Cairns. And Cairns, for the second time this year, punched them straight in the mouth. A big fourth quarter. I'm going to start with you, Pete Hooley, because Melbourne United struggled to go to Cairns. And you need to tell me why Cairns don't use his advantage more. It's a tough place to play, right?
And I hate saying this alongside Damon Lowery, who runs at 3 a.m. in the morning, does 100 kilometres with bees in his face and everything and all this. But it is a strange, weird, tough road trip to go up there because the humidity, and a lot of time you get up there, you get off the plane and you get to the hotel room, and what's the first thing you do to cool down? You want to go to the pool. You spend some time in the pool, and all the high performers want to keep you out of the pool before a game. You walk to shoot around, you walk to get a coffee, it just zaps your energy a little bit. And more often than not just a tough road trip, but you start slow because of all of that. You're not ready to go at the game. You're not used to that kind of environment, and then you go out there, and if you don't start well, you normally seem to lay an egg, and some teams perform better. I know I think I won once up there in a couple of years, so it is hard. But again, not surprised in terms of what Cairns can do because I think they just match up very well against Melbourne United.
Are we sleeping on Patrick Miller? Have a look at this. He's been huge all year. I don't mean his arms, I mean his actual play. But are we sleeping on him, Damon? Have we given him the respect he deserves?
No, we have not. Patrick Miller, the backcourt bully, who's also in the little big man society, he's the guy, him and his mate, Tajir McCall. These two guys right here do whatever they want to do when they come with the right energy. It is led by Tajir, but Pat Miller, he is now shooting 3 balls, which early in the season he wasn't doing a lot of that. His mid-range game, his footwork, I'm going to throw a name out here and don't think I'm comparing the players, but Tracy McGrady's footwork, this move he's got, he'd get that shot off. Hang on a minute, let me just get myself back in Pat Miller mode. Now, as I was saying, Pat Miller can do whatever he wants defensively and offensively. Melbourne United's strength is their backcourt, correct? Shea Illy, Matthew Dellavedova hounding you into a pulp. Can't do that with Pat Miller. He's got control of the ball, mid-range shot. Tajir McCall can get to the rack whenever he wants to. Styles make fights, and they just do not match up well. They got all the heightened athletes, Cairns. They are Achilles' heel for the Melbourne United.
Look, I don't. Someone will correct me if I'm incorrect here, but like Adam Ford has to think outside the square. We've touched a great deal on how they construct this roster. Is it going to the young kids and say you're going to play? Armstrong's getting better every time he plays too. But what I think he's done now is McCall and Miller, are they best friends?
Yes.
Right. So he's like, all right, so how do we do this? We've got the on-court chemistry already. They suit each other. Their games suit each other. The fact that McCall is shooting better this year opens up the court a little bit more for him. But it's so obvious the chemistry offensively and defensively. Sometimes you've got to think outside the square when you're punching a little above your weight, which Cairns do financially. Man, they're fun to watch that backcourt.
Firstly, Pat Miller, I think he said something in the post-game press conference, right, on the floor and the full play of the game, and turned around and said, we're just quieting down the haters and all the people that don't believe in us. And I'm like, he's just doing it with hoops, right? He's just going out there, putting the ball in the basket. I love that. What I love about the chemistry between those two is this is, I think, Taj McCall's most consistent year. The first 2 years he was in the league, he was wild at times, right? Throwing the ball away, had some 8 turnover games and all of that. And we thought he just needs to be pulled back a little. And Adam Ford is, at the time, you don't want to pull back what someone does well, which can also be the weakness. Then you lose who the player is. He brought in Pat Miller, who they've been working out together. They know each other. He's a little bit older. And he looks a lot more in control of his game. And he's also very quietly dominating. Taj McCall's had an unbelievable season alongside Pat Miller. And you mentioned matching up well against Melbourne United. The Sam Menenga, I mean, there was Josh Roberts in the first game, but throwing Sam Menenga out there, what is JLA elite at defensively? Rim protection. Having this man just step out and knock down some threes, 6 of 11 from 3, you take JLA out of the keyway, which allows Pat Miller to go in there and just muscle people around and get to his spot. So call it a coaching stroke of genius by Adam Ford to tell Sam Menenga, hey, I need you this season. He inserted him into the starting lineup. I think he put him in the starting lineup to try and get Sam Wardenberg more comfortable in the 4 and going, but now we're seeing this man step out and stroke it from outside. Unbelievably good looking stroke, and he's been knocking him down 6 of 11. And
he shot it well in college.
Now, don't get me started. So I saw the tweet. And again, I brought it up.
I haven't seen the tweet. You told me about it.
We'll see everybody's tweet.
I got it sent to me.
So what happened?
I thought it sent on there. Or just someone saying they didn't appreciate me bringing up Sam Menenga's Davidson shooting. He shot 16 of 30 sophomore.
There it is.
Which, again, I do have an answer for that, a response. Not everybody watches every Australian in every league.
Agree.
Knows who they are. You didn't know Sam Menenga was who he came.
Didn't know.
So yes, I'll highlight the fact that this is no surprise that he's shooting the 3. He did show that he could shoot it, albeit on a small scale. But I also am going to have fun with it. We have one of the greatest Davidson Wildcats ever alongside us in the broadcast, so I want to have some fun with that. And hey, let's just have fun. Let's just have some smiles. We don't have to be negative all the time.
Well, again, where do we sit on Cairns, right? Because Pat Miller made that comment. It's like, trying to quieten the haters, which is we absolutely understand it. But they also got fairly easily beaten a couple of nights earlier in Sydney. Now, not easy to win in Sydney, understand the home court situation, but their ceiling is so high. We just, can they do some damage?
They can. They can and they can't.
Do you have New Zealand and Illawarra finishing above them?
I don't know what's happening with that 6th spot.
Okay.
I don't know how far the Hawks can go, but they might be fighting out for 6 with Cairns. If Cairns play with more consistency, they top 4, top 5, no problem at all. But like I said before, they sometime they want to play hard, sometimes they don't. So you can't get a read on them.
I think there with the Kings is the gap between their best and the worst is the largest in the league, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
You see when they're flying, geez, this team can do something special. And when they lay an egg, boy, do they. And I think that's why Adam Ford's just getting frustrated because they go out there twice against Melbourne United. He'd be thinking, Melbourne scored 78 points. The leading scoring team, 78 points. However they went about doing it, they did it right. So when they can produce, the problem is they played 20 games. And I think their inconsistency may come from a little bit. When they came back from the USA, they played a lot of games quickly. And they didn't have enough time to kind of figure it out on the practice floor. The lineups and everything were chopping and changing. So we've seen it. If they can string it together, they might be able to do something, but we just can't see it on a consistent basis.
It's so weird. Melbourne are so good defensively. They're so good defensively. And then Cairns just did whatever they wanted in the first half. A month or so ago, in that first half, they put up 65 or 67. Got whatever they wanted in that first half where the game was really won. Last week, or New Year's Eve, 4th quarter, tied going into it. Traditionally, where Melbourne's strength is, we just get stops. Cairns got whatever they wanted. It's amazing. Sometimes they can get whatever they want. Other times it feels like they can't score for 4.5 quarters.
It was offensive brilliance that allowed them to get back and tie it up.
Yeah.
Now, it's certain kind of players and teams that give the United trouble. If you one of those teams just run your structure A to B, B to C, they'll maul you to death. But if you can put the ball on the floor, and you can break guys down. You heard what Chris Golding said the first half when they played the Kings. They had to come back from that. Golding goes, we got to sit down and guard. That's the kind of teams that gives the United trouble, those types. Now, if they meet them in the Final Four championship series, who knows what could happen?
All right, so they play Sydney this week, Melbourne. I am on the record of saying certainly 100% Melbourne won't lose back-to-back games this year. Am I in trouble?
Yeah, I think you're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah?
Only a little bit.
Get them?
Because the Kings are they wobbly. I mean, they defensively, who are they? You can't hang your hat on them. You can't trust them. Neither.
This game couldn't have come at a better time. Not for you, because Sydney coming off a really good win, Melbourne coming off a loss. So this is going to be a blockbuster at Kudos Bank Arena, and I'm excited to see how both teams respond. Because can Sydney back it up? That's what I want to see. And how will Melbourne bounce back? They also look like Melbourne up in Cairns, a team that hadn't played for 8 days too.
Stop it.
No, they look like they've just been enjoying some nice Christmas lunch, a little bit of extended time away in the middle of the season, not a fever break, and a bit lethargic after that.
Bryce Cotton. Very rarely is Bryce Cotton lethargic, and he certainly wasn't. Let's go back to that open-air game, because he does everything on a consistent basis. When they've been able to unlock him a little bit after a sluggish start, which is un-Bryce-like, he's become the Bryce Cotton of old. And there's no coincidence that when he's doing this, Perth are one of, if not the best team in the league. I'm going to start with you right now, Pete Hooley. Is he the most valuable player?
Undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly.
Yep, I think right now the form that he's consistently been in since those slow starts, his numbers are absurd. What he could potentially finish this season at, considering he averaged 14 points through the first 5 rounds.
People forget that.
Where he's at now and how efficient he is. So these are his MVP numbers in the past. I mean, he's leading 22.8 points per game. Leading the league, and he averaged 14 points through the first 5 rounds, shooting really inefficient numbers. It is just astronomical, this kind of turnaround that he's on and what he's doing, and playing a whole lot of minutes, which we'll get into. But right now, I think it's a 2-horse race in this, but I think he's leading that charge.
He was better in 2021, as we can see by the numbers. But Bryce Cotton is the MVP. He just won his 4th MVP. And just so you know, before people start saying about the narrative, I don't know who votes for these things, and whoever does vote for him, they don't give a damn about Damon Lowery. They don't care. I'm not influencing anybody. Bryce Cotton is dominant. Nobody can stop him. You got to build your entire team defense around him, and he still can give you 40.
So coaches and players vote, firstly, on all the awards. And this is the thing with the MVP that I've been wanting. You can have, it's a long season. You can have different points of the season where different players lead, even if it's your most hated player from an opposition team. Jordan Crawford was probably leading it early when Bryce struggled. Chris Golding was undoubtedly the favourite at that time when we were all talking about him. He was balling out on the best team in the league, and he still is playing at a very high level. And now Bryce Cotton is in that charge. And if Bryce Cotton keeps at this, Bryce Cotton's going to put a gap on everybody else. there is allowed to have different people, and I think we all just need to respect how elite some of the players are in this league.
That's a joke, too. Players coach voting for it, too, in my opinion.
He wants to vote. He wants to vote.
I don't want the players voting for MVP.
Let's get to the minutes played. I see it's been a little bit of a thing in the NBL. Look, we've touched on this before, Damon. I think there's too much subbing in the NBL. But let's have a look at this. It's nearly 38 minutes a game. You can throw a couple of overtime games in that obviously help. And Bryce Cotton played. He played all 45, didn't he, a couple of weekends ago in the open air game. There you go. Damon, now you played in a different generation. It was 48-minute games, right?
He's a different human too. What can I ask Damon this?
All right, then I'll ask you.
No, ask him.
Stop it. Just cut it out. Continue.
38 minutes a game is fine. They play 2 minutes a game, right? Two games a week.
Yeah, that's nothing. We make a big deal about it. Guys, what's happened is, once you let guys start playing these many minutes, or not big minutes, you know what happens? You get conditioned to not play big minutes. So now a guy can go out there and play 25 minutes and be gassed. Oh, he's gassed, got to sub him out. We got to keep fresh bodies on the floor at all times. If that was the case, you would never get these unbelievable performances from guys who just know how to dig deep and still make shots when they are tired. This era has gone away from that, and I wish there was a 48-minute game. 48-minute era, the 7th, you didn't even know who the 8th and 9th and 10th men were. You had no idea. Now the 8th man can play double 50 minutes. So good luck to him.
He's got one thing that Bryce got in his favour with the minutes, he's got the best motor in the league. And he's had that since he stepped in, and that's part of his greatness is that he runs off a million screens. Remember the flex offense? He was involved every single time running from side to side in that half court. And then in the fourth quarter, when the defense might be a little tired, he stayed at the same level or got better. His motor's better than anyone. The problem that I have with the 38 minutes a game he's playing is he's getting beat up on the floor for 38 minutes. Not just running around untouched, he is getting beat up. And that's where I think they'd like to get just a little bit of rest if they can towards a final series, because you still want him to be at 100%, even though Bryce Cotton's 75% is still better than most of the league.
Now, John Riley, coach of the Perth Wildcats. Let's talk about our man Doolittle. Now, we've spoken about him on this show before, which I'll let Pete Hooley expand on in a minute. But firstly, the head coach of the Wildcats had this to say, and his Star Imports Defensive Player of the Year credentials.
I guess that bamboozles me to some degree, where we talk about all these other players in the league about Defensive Player of the Year candidates, and this guy just quietly goes about his business every night. I'm not an analytics guy, but we're moving in the right direction defensively, and he's a huge part of it. So it would be nice if people watched a little closer so they realise how much impact he has at that end of the floor.
That breaks my heart, and Pete Hooley, you can explain why that disappoints us so great.
I sat here November 28th and we were doing a bit of the mid-season awards watch, and I had him in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, because when they turned things around, when they slid, John really won't take credit for it, but he needs to take credit for himself. He slid him to the small forward position, and he has been a beast defensively. I think right now, Jalen Galloway just came back, but have a look at some of these plays, right? So this is late in the game. He understood that the ball had to come out of Jordan Crawford's hand. He can guard 1 through 5. It's his ability to, not get screened. He got hit there, but he switches on. Look at that. That's a Spanish action. He switches out to Chris Golding to blow that play up. How many times have Melbourne United beat people on that Spanish action? There's one against DJ Vasilich we'll see soon enough. And what I love, quietly's right. It's not the steals, it's not the blocks, although he can do that, but he knows that what he does well is uses his body. Look at this. You will not find a better one-on-one defense right here. Cuts that off from DJ Vasilich. The screen comes, doesn't get screened, fights over it, uses his strength, makes the ball go to somebody else. That's the best you can hope for. And then all of a sudden, yeah, he can do this. He's got athleticism. He can come across weak side and block it. So absolutely, I think it's a two-horse race. I think Shea Illy's obviously in that conversation. And Shea Illy's unbelievable, sets a tone. But what Christian Doolittle has done, that's why I said it on November 28th. Yeah. Come on, JR, tune in to Overtime.
No, I know. John, really, I'm looking straight at you down the camera. Come on, man. Watch the show. Hashtag NBL Overtime to get involved. Look, firstly, John really deserves some credit as well. He had to make some big tweaks to get Bryce Cotton these better shots, and he's done that, sliding Doolittle in. Still some stuff to work on, but they're heading in the right direction. But come on, JR. It's the #1 show in the nation. Give us some love. Quick break, NBL Overtime. Everyone knows it, but John Riley. We'll see you in a moment. Welcome back to NBL Overtime. That man's a 3-time NBL winning title player, Casey Prather, and he is back in the league. I thought Brisbane did a wonderful job of marketing him to make his return game and then didn't play him. But to be fair, they didn't need him in the big win. But the good news is we will see Casey Prather play next time the Bullets are
Hopefully.
out there. Yeah, I'd say so. I doubt he's going to get another DNP CD, but you know what? A win's a win. You like the move? What do you make of this? What do you make of Brisbane?
Well, Brisbane is, like I said, they are now a respectable franchise, first and foremost. Great job by Justin Schuller, Greg Van and Jack, Daryl McDonald of just establishing some credibility with this organization. From a playing point of view, though, they're not good enough. They're not good enough for the six. As currently constructed, this team cannot, in my opinion, make the six because they don't have enough scoring. They got 2 imports. I can't remember the last time I saw 2 imports come off the bench. I can't, to only have, now they got Prather, so now they got 3. It's going to be 3 imports at some stage come off the bench probably. It's unheard of. That aside, they've got nothing in the middle, Cam. They've got a whole bunch of 6'2", 6'3" dudes, 3 6'11", 7' dudes, and nothing in the middle. That DJ Mitchell spot who was hurt, they need that spot. So if Prather, if Casey can come in and provide that perimeter 3-man scoring 4, a little bit of small ball 4 maybe, that'll go a long way because they need more points. Sobey cannot do it all by himself.
Well, that's what he's here for. That's what Casey Prather is here for. They believe it's the piece, which, if it's the Casey Prather we have seen and a man who won an NBL championship with you, Pete, and I know you are quite tight with Casey Prather, he will go a long way to helping those scoring woes that consistently do struggle with Brisbane. They looked great last week when Sobey has 35, but that's not a week-by-week thing. What do you make of it?
I actually think they've been pretty solid defensively this year under Justin Schuller. So the offense is the one. And I mean, we're showing these highlights of Casey Prather, and you're on a play alongside him. He's an unbelievable basketball player, but he's a terrific person, first and foremost. And I'm not sure how much they're expecting him to play this season because he hasn't played in 2 years coming off that injury and that rehab. One thing for sure is he's ready. When I spoke to him a couple of months ago and he said that he's keen to get back, he's been fully cleared, and just any sort of spark will help them. And I believe it's the 2-year deal with an option for next year. So I think a lot of it this year is potentially saying, hey, get some rust off for the last 2 years. And again, if you show us any of the signs or anything close to those highlights we saw, next year we're going to look really good.
So I raised on this show about 6 weeks ago that Brisbane had something cooking, right? And this is what I like about this move. I like Casey Prather. I like him a lot. And hopefully, touch wood, his body likes him a lot and he can play good basketball. And no one wants to say, hey, you know what? We're not challenging for a championship. But I don't think Brisbane are. And I don't think they think they are right now. They would love to get on a run and win games and all a great fairy tale. But they're building for next year.
Correct.
Now, the Aaron Bain situation, the big contract comes off. They've had to restructure some stuff to get Casey in. But you are right. This Casey Prather thing, this ain't for this year. Now, if he comes in and plays well, it'll help, and they'll win games, and they may make the 6, they may make a play-in game. You know, they've got to work different things. I think Mitch Norton's been really good at different times. Sobey's been really good at different times. They're going in the right direction.
It's a genius move.
It is a great move, because if you're going to bring someone in and spend money, not waste money, but spend money, there has to be a long-time future towards it. And that's exactly what they're doing with Casey Prather. If I was a Brisbane Bullets fan, that's something else they're doing. They're selling it so perfectly for what's going to happen next year, more so than what's going to happen in the next 6 weeks.
And as the players, you got to respect them because you don't want to admit that we can't do it this year. Of course, they're competitors. They're professionals. They're
absolutely.
Go out there, and I'm telling you, if you show up at Nissan Arena slipping, they'll get you.
Yeah.
You have to play it to beat them. But I would like to see them 3 imports. Now Casey comes in, here's 3. Next, give me a next star, too. Can I have a next star, please? Liam.
Well, they got a next star. Big Rocco.
Sorry, Rocco is going to be gone in a couple of years' time in the NBA.
That's true.
Got to make sure. We got to start planning for the future. And like I say, Bainsey, that's a conversation. Conversation needs to be had.
Next year is interesting. But again, genius. And again, they'll surprise a lot of teams down the stretch.
You touched on the imports, Damon. Here's some numbers from the last 4 games. And they don't... Well, they actually do jump off the page, but not in a positive way. That is something we don't. You're right, Damon. You've been around this league for near on 30 years. This is something you don't see, occasionally from 1, but not from 2. And even more weird is that they won this game and won it relatively comfortably.
Who'd they beat?
They beat South East Melbourne Phoenix.
Okay. Now, here's what happens too. Shannon Scott he's not playing with any confidence.
Yeah.
Now, we've all been there. When you lose your confidence, it's hard to get it back. Now, when he was at Cairns, he was the main distributor. He would go games with like 8 assists, 1 turnover, like really leading the team. Then he got hurt. Now he comes back and he took a shot the other day, made the 3, but I almost fell off the couch. I thought he shot the ball. I forgot that you actually shoot the ball. Yeah. And this is what happens. You kind of play yourself into a funk. Chris Smith, I think, is carrying some type of injury because he's already shown us that he's a bit of a sniper. But he's hurt too. But at the end of the day, don't nobody care. Nobody cares, Pete. You got to get it done. So, for whatever reason, them two guys right now, they got to turn it up. I mean, the conversation's got to be, let's not be like Melbourne United. I know Justin Shooter's from that tree. Let's let the ball go here. Let's let everybody get it. Them two guys right there, get them the ball. They got to score.
You mentioned Shannon Scott in Cairns, but if you remember that season, right, when Taj Bakul got hurt or they missed a piece like Keanu Pinder, he had a 30-point game against Sydney. He became really aggressive, and then a lot of the other times when they were at full strength, he kind of disappeared in games. And I think we're seeing that a little bit this year. I still think it's a great piece for them, and once he plays with that confidence and aggression, he's only going to help them, and I think Justin Schuller will be having that conversation with how do we get you to that point, and maybe another Casey Prather type, if he gets in there and scores, it'll take some pressure off him as well. And Chris Smith, if he's coming off your bench, and we talked about six man of the year at the same time we talked about defensive Christian Doolittle, the first 3 plays, he's got to have 2 of them ran for him. He's a shooter.
Yeah.
Tassie do it with Clint Steindl. You bring a shooter off the bench who's a knockdown shooter. He can't be asleep for the first 2 minutes. You have to get him involved straight away. I think that's what they have to do going forward.
Big shout out to Nathan Soapy as well, who was incredibly good off the first 4 seconds of the game, and he grew from there. A quick break. Around Australia, this is NBL Overtime. It is NBL Overtime. Cam Luke, Pete Hooley, Damon Lowery as we work our way through a big Tuesday night. Hashtag NBL Overtime to get involved. Now, everyone has done this at some point. I've been pushing this for 5 years on this show, but it is time for an NBL All-Star Game. Do we agree? I mean, the reintroduction of the NBL All-Star Game. We all on the same page, right?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
so, look, to be fair, I live a very boring life, so I took the liberty of constructing how it should actually look. Let's have a look. Here we go. New Year's Eve.
Yep.
New Year's Eve, right? Locals v imports, 9 players per team. I don't want to see 12 players, Damon. I don't want to see people play 5 minutes and get subbed out. I want to see the best players play. Now, the stipulation is a 10th spot must be a next star.
Yep.
Right? Selected by a committee of 5 people, not dissimilar to the awards committee. We wrote it out. No zone. I don't want to get you started, Damon, but no zone. The ELAM ending, so these guys are going to play all the way to the end. The coaches are the top 2 teams on the ladder, December 17, which is 2 weeks prior. So whatever the ladder looks like, 1 and 2. Winning team, 10K each. Losing team, 2,500 each. So a bit of financial investment there as well. Hey?
You putting that cash up?
Me and Larry will combine it up, and must have a WNBL game, right? So the team who wins the championship the year before, right? They get the opportunity to host it. Now, logistically, there may be a concern with, say, Melbourne with the tennis and all the rest of it, but they have the opportunity to host it, and it is time to continue to draw and join forces as a community here in Basketball Australia to help the men's game continue to grow, but also the women's team as well. Now, it could be a double-header like last week. Just have a Melbourne team, say it's in Melbourne, for example, then the Flyers play prior to the NBL All-Star Game.
I do love the WNBL curtain rush. Shout out to Sydney
Bloody
for
oath.
doing that.
Did it perfectly last week in front of a huge crowd. Or they could join forces with the WNBL and have their own WNBL All-Star Game, right? So that's the idea right now. What do you think?
I'm speechless. That's gorgeous.
Now,
You came up with that by yourself?
well, actually, no, by myself. So December, we have a week off from the NBL games,
Yep.
right? So December 28, we take a week off. The players all roll on in, away we go, and the hosting team can do whatever they want. If they want to choose to do a 3-point shootout, hell, let them, or a skills challenge, or a dunk comp. But you give some type of license to the actual hosts to say, we are going to host this as well as we possibly can. New Year's Eve, basketball festival, and away we go.
That's unbelievable.
I've gone one step further. I've put together this year's NBL All-Star team
done some work.
to see how we go. Here we go. Dean Vickerman's the coach of the locals. Sobe, Golding, Creek, Froling, JLA, Travers, Humphreys, Dujay, McVeigh's had a really good year, and Alex Tui, of course, fits in as the next star.
I'm scared to see this
Well,
next.
do you have any off the top of your head, because I'm throwing this at you, here's the imports.
Oh.
Cotton, Adams, Doyle, Lamb, Big Sauce, Our Man, Miller, Doolittle, Clark, Saar, of course, headed by the Sydney Kings superstar coach, and Parker Jackson Cartwright is having an outstanding year. So there you go. The locals v the imports. Does anyone slap you in the face of not being there right now?
No,
Huh?
Well,
that import
Oh,
team.
it's a
over.
it's a good imports team.
I'm talking smack right now.
I would
Import for the win.
If they do bring it back, and you hear
They're bringing it back.
Yeah, you hear the rumblings. It's coming.
It's happening.
It's got to be locals versus
It absolutely
Aussies,
does.
right?
Yep.
Because I want the week after, if the Aussie they just shoot the lights out and they get that win, I want to be looking right here at Damon Lowery and just letting him have it. Like, for a
Good
week,
luck to you.
For a week, I'll just resent this man even more than I do as a Cowboys.
Hey, you know what? It's time. It is time to bring the All-Star Game back.
Open
It
air?
is time. See, this is what the host.
Okay.
Like if Melbourne or Perth have open-air stadiums, imagine an open-air All-Star Game on New Year's Eve. Now, they could do whatever they want. Whatever they want, as the host, away you go, an extra incentive of winning the previous year's championship.
Boss move.
There you
Boss
go.
move, Cam.
There you go. Of course, that'll be known as the Kamloops All-Star Game, just like it is known as the Kamloops Play-In Game. Bang, bang, yes or no is next.
Welcome back to NBL Overtime. Santa's not here, but Santa's always watching.
Apparently.
He's watching every single game. Here's the first one. And standing from the crowd, just the boys, just what are they listening to? It's probably T Swift, because she's the rage, and I'm okay with that. Just having some nice. Alan Williams got some moves, by the way, but these two look like they were just separated at birth, right?
Yeah.
It's Christmas time. No, you give me my toys. No, you give me my toys. Rosetta and Rosendale, and have this from Sam Menenga. Just throw it up there, any which way, trying to draw the foul. Doesn't matter. Sometimes it's a bit lucky, then good. It's 2 points, Ken. That's all that matters right here, but this is fun. Shannon Scott lost his shoe for about 3 possessions, but he's not going to give up on the play. He's going to stay with it, and I felt a bit bad because have a look at the death stare he gives the floor wiper here. But getting the shoe off the floor, look at this. Give me my shoe when I ask for it. This is just a man who knows that he sweats way too much. Slow down, Torra.
Yeah, that was good gear.
He knew that he is a massive sweater, that he's going to put, look at this, this could have ended really badly. If that left foot doesn't get stopped, if the sole of his left foot goes like his right foot, that is in the nether.
I love the people in the corporate box just pissing themselves laughing. They had no regard for the tailbone of the big fella. Also reminded me of the time that Jerome Randall shook you out of your shoes.
Yeah, broke me Kobe Falls.
Yes or no time? Did you like the Tassie Christmas Day jerseys?
Loved them. Yes.
Has our man Prey Mantis over in the Breakers, has he been the most impressive next star?
Overall? Oh, no.
Will Magnay, will he be in the NBL next year?
Yes.
Okay. Is Patrick Miller having a better season than Milton Doyle?
Yes.
Will Aaron Baines be playing in Brisbane next year?
No.
Ooh.
Should South East Melbourne Phoenix chase Mitch McCarron?
Yes, absolutely.
They did a pure point guard, right?
He'll be cheaper. He'll be cheaper than he will.
Be cheap.
Haven't had a pure point guard.
You've been good. You've been great. No, you've been great too, man. Hashtag NBL Overtime. Look at this. Nah.